All right, so are you ready to get a little spooky? Today we're diving deep into The Haunting of Hill House, the Netflix series.
Yeah, it's a great one.
And we're not just recapping the plot here, right? I mean, everyone who's listening probably already knows the story. We've got this stack of video essays with some seriously interesting perspectives, and we're going to dig into, well, what makes this show way more than your typical ghost story.
It's definitely more than just, things jumping out at you. It uses horror to explore some bigger ideas like family and trauma and, the things that stay with us from the past.
One of the things that really struck me about it, especially compared to a lot of other modern horror movies, is how it handles scares. Jump scares are like everywhere these days.
Right.
But Hill House, Hill House takes a different approach.
Yeah.
And a lot of the essays really dig into this.
Yeah. They talk about how Hill House really builds this like unsettling atmosphere, right? It's all about dread. It makes you feel like something is wrong even when you don't know what it is.
It's like it gets under your skin.
Right. And it makes you think about, well, what is really scary, Is it just a quick jolt? Or is it that feeling, that creeping unease that sticks with you?
It's definitely that lingering feeling that's scarier.
Yeah, I think so. It taps into a much deeper kind of fear. And one of the ways it does that is by blurring the lines between, what's supernatural and what's psychological.
And speaking of unsettling, can we talk about the house itself?
Oh, absolutely.
It's basically a character, right? One of the essays described it as having like a sinister personality.
It is. Almost like it's alive, in a way.
Yeah, like a living, breathing entity.
Right. And one of the most interesting traits of the house is the Red Room.
The Red Room, yeah.
This room, it's at the heart of the house and it changes depending on who's in it. It kind of reflects their deepest desires and vulnerabilities.
So it's like, for Shirley, the oldest daughter, it's a perfect family room.
Right. But it's, too perfect, almost.
Yeah.
It reflects her need for control. You can kind of sense her anxieties about family life underneath it all.
And for Stephen, the oldest son, the Red Room is like this game room full of all these achievements and trophies.
Which, when you think about it, it's perfect for Stephen's character, right? He's always trying to prove himself, but it also shows how he, distances himself from his family. He's more comfortable with, intellectualizing things than actually feeling them.
Yeah.
And then there's Nell, the youngest daughter. For her, the Red Room becomes...
Playroom, right?
Yeah. Full of toys, innocence. But it still has this unsettling feeling to it. Like, it's a space where she's both protected and vulnerable at the same time.
That's so interesting how her childhood innocence is tied to this, deep fear.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, if the house is feeding off these vulnerabilities.
Oh, yeah.
What about the father, Hugh? What's his Red Room like?
Well, that's one of the biggest mysteries the show leaves us with. Some of the essays, they speculate that Hugh's Red Room might be the basement. The one that's all moldy and run down.
Ooh, that's creepy. Like, is this hidden place full of secrets and decay?
Exactly. And it fits with this idea that the house itself is, sick somehow. And that sickness can spread to the people who live in it. You see this most clearly with Olivia, the mother. She has these, psychic abilities which kind of make her more vulnerable to the house.
And then there's that black mold. I mean, it's everywhere.
Oh, yeah. It's like it's seeping into everything, poisoning the house and the people inside.
But like a physical manifestation of their problems. The family is falling apart, their sanity is decaying, and the mold is just right there with them.
It's not just a physical threat, though, right? It's more like a metaphor for the darkness that's getting into their lives.
It's like the house is eating them alive.
Yeah. And, one of the most disturbing parts about Olivia's story is how the house, or maybe something in the house, manipulates her. There's the ghost of Poppy Hill, this woman who used to live there, and she kind of preys on Olivia's desire for a forever home.
She wants to keep her family together, safe and sound.
Right. But Poppy twists that into something dark.
Yeah, you really start to see how the lines between, the ghosts and the characters' own minds just completely disappear. It's not just that there are ghosts, it's that their own fears are haunting them.
That's what makes the horror so effective, I think. It's not just about, jump scares and things like that. It's about the darkness that's inside us all.
It really gets you thinking. And one of the things that really blew me away was how the show plays with time. It jumps back and forth between the past and the present. It's so well done.
Yeah. And it shows you how what happened at Hill House when they were kids is still affecting them as adults. It's like the past isn't really past. It's always there under the surface.
And then there's the bent neck lady. Poor Nell. She's haunted by this terrifying figure for, like, the whole series. And then we get to episode 5.
The bent neck lady.
Yeah. And we find out.
The big twist. Nell is the bent neck lady. She's stuck in this time loop, and she's the one who's destined to die in Hill House.
It's like, wait, what? It makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about the story. It makes you wonder how our past can influence us in ways we don't even realize.
It definitely makes you think about fate and, how the past can repeat itself.
It's kind of terrifying, actually,
Yeah, it is.
but also really brilliant.
I agree. It's one of the things that makes this show so unique.
Totally. So we've talked about the ghosts, the house, the twisted way time works in this show,
Right.
but we haven't even gotten to Olivia's story yet, which is just heartbreaking.
Yeah, and Hugh's journey, too. There's so much more to uncover.
Exactly. And luckily for us, we have a whole lot more deep dive to do.
We do, and I can't wait to dig in even further.
Me neither. So stay tuned, because we're going to keep exploring the dark secrets and psychological depths of The Haunting at Hill House.
It's going to be good. And it makes you think about mental illness, too, and how easily the lines between what's real and what's not can get blurred.
Especially in a place like Hill House. And it raises questions about motherhood, like how far would you go to protect your kids?
Oh, for sure. Olivia's story is one of the most, I don't know, I guess the word is tragic. It's one of the most tragic parts of the show.
Yeah, it really gets to you.
Mm.
And it's like the house is using those motherly instincts against her.
Exactly. It twists them into something monstrous.
So while Olivia kind of gives in to the house's darkness, her husband, Hugh, he tries to fight it. He tries to protect his family by just denying that any of it is real.
Right. He spends years trying to rationalize what happened at Hill House, but eventually he has to face the truth.
It must have been so hard for him,
Yeah.
to reconcile his beliefs with what he saw with his own eyes.
Yeah, I mean, he's a man of science. He believes in logic and reason. But Hill House, well, it throws all of that out the window.
And in the end, he makes this huge sacrifice. He goes back to Hill House to try and save his kids.
It's a testament to his love for his family, but it also makes you wonder about the choices he made along the way. Like, did keeping the truth from his kids actually protect them? Or did it just make things worse in the long run?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer. It makes you think about the burdens of parenthood, the impossible decisions you have to make
Oh, yeah,
sometimes.
absolutely. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about the show's visual style. Because, wow, it is beautifully shot.
Oh, I know. There are some scenes that are just like breathtaking. There's one that sticks out in my mind where the camera is slowly zooming in on Shirley's face, and it's just, I don't know, mesmerizing.
Right. That's Mike Flanagan for you. He uses these long takes, these slow zooms, and the way he frames each shot. It's like he's inviting you into the characters' minds. You can practically feel their fear and sadness.
It's like he's saying, look closer. Pay attention to what's happening beneath the surface.
Exactly. And it's not just the visuals. The sound design plays a huge role, too. All those creaking noises, the whispers, it all adds to that feeling of dread. You're always on edge, waiting for something to happen.
And then there's episode 6, Two Storms. Talk about technical brilliance. The whole episode is filmed in these long, unbroken takes, and it's just mind-blowing.
It really is. And it's amazing how they blend the past and present so seamlessly.
Some of the essays we read, they really went deep into how complex it must have been to film that episode.
It really shows the dedication of the filmmakers. And it makes you think about how those long takes change the way you watch the show. It's more immersive, right? You're trapped in the moment with the characters.
Totally. It's like you can't look away. You're right there in the house with them.
But some people find it frustrating, too slow, maybe. It's interesting how different people react to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Not everyone is going to love it, but I think it's a great example of how Hill House pushes the boundaries of horror.
It's definitely not your typical horror show.
And then there's the ending. Oh man, the ending. It's so ambiguous. It leaves you with this feeling of, I don't know, unease, I guess.
Exactly. Like, did the Crain family really escape the Red Room? Or are they still trapped in some way? It's up to you to decide.
Mike Flanagan has said that he intentionally left it open-ended. He wanted viewers to come to their own conclusions.
Which is brilliant, in a way. It keeps you thinking about the show long after it's over.
And all those different interpretations in the essays, it just shows how much there is to unpack.
One of them said that the Red Room is a metaphor for our own internal struggles. The places inside ourselves where we keep our fears and regrets.
So even if they got out of the house, maybe they're still carrying those ghosts around inside them.
Maybe. And that brings us to the question, can we ever truly escape the ghosts of our past? Or are they always a part of who we are?
That's a heavy one.
It is. But it's a question this show really makes you think about. And it's not just about individual trauma, it's about how that trauma can echo through generations of a family.
The Crain family, they're so messed up, but they're also so relatable in a way. They're trying to connect, to heal, but the past keeps getting in the way.
Right. And sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we create within ourselves.
There's this one detail that really stuck with me from the essays. It's about Nell's cup of stars. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Mrs. Dudley tells young Nell that she always needs to ask for her cup of stars, because once the house has you, you'll never have it again.
It's such a strange little detail that it adds this whole other layer to the story.
It does, and it's been bugging me ever since I read it. What do you think it means? What do you think the cup of stars represents?
I've been trying to figure that out myself. Maybe it's like a symbol of individuality, that sense of self you lose when the house takes over.
That's a good one.
Or maybe it's hope, a reminder that there's beauty and light outside the darkness of Hill House.
I like that. It's like a little beacon of hope.
It's definitely one of those details that makes you want to watch the show again, to look for clues. And
Huh.
that's what's so great about Hill House. It's so layered, so complex. It's not just about giving you answers, it's about making you think.
And that's thanks in part to these essays, right? They've given us so many different ways to look at the show.
Absolutely. We've talked about the horror, the characters, the filmmaking, but I think what really stands out is the way the show explores trauma and grief.
Mm-hmm.
It's about facing those difficult emotions, understanding how they affect us, and finding a way to move forward.
And it's not just about individual journeys, it's about family. The Crane family, they're flawed, but they're trying to find their way back to each other.
They show us that even when things are really dark, there's still hope for connection and healing.
And that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we create within ourselves.
It's like the house preys on their weaknesses,
Right.
like the Overlook Hotel in The Shining, right?
Yeah, exactly. It feeds on Jack Torrance's, his issues. And Hill House, it does the same thing to the Cranes. It takes their fears, their insecurities, and just amplifies them.
It pushes them to the edge.
Right, right. And that makes me think about another thing the essays talked about, the whole forever home idea. Olivia Crain, she's so fixated on creating this perfect home for her family.
She wants to protect them, keep them safe in the world. But that desire for a forever home, it gets, I don't know, kind of twisted by the house, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
It's like she's trying to freeze time to create this little world where nothing bad can ever happen.
But that's not how life works, right?
No, it's not. And in trying to protect her kids, she ends up, well, trapping them.
So the forever home becomes a prison.
In a way, yeah. It's a powerful idea, isn't it?
It really is. It makes you think about how our past can have such a strong hold on us.
And it's not just Olivia, right? Each of the Crane siblings, they're all struggling with their own version of the forever home, whether it's clinging to memories, trying to recreate the past, or just looking for a safe place to hide from the present.
And the house, with its weird time stuff and how it messes with your head, it's like the stage for all of that to play out.
Yeah, exactly. It's a mirror reflecting their fears and desires back at them.
Which makes the ending even more, I don't know, thought-provoking. Did they really get away from the house's influence? Or are they still searching for that forever home in their adult lives?
It's a question that stays with you.
And I love that it doesn't give you a clear answer. It makes you think. And those essays, they offered so many different interpretations.
I really did.
It's amazing how much depth there is to this show. It's a testament to Mike Flanagan's skill as a director.
Oh, absolutely. He's a master at creating these layered stories that, get under your skin.
And speaking of his skill, we can't forget about the long takes. Episode 6, Two Storms, is just incredible. Filming an entire episode in those long, uninterrupted shots, it's mind-blowing.
It's a technical marvel for sure, and it really adds to the tension, the feeling of being trapped.
You're right there with the characters, experiencing everything in real time.
But some people, they find those long takes frustrating. They think it's too slow, too drawn out.
Yeah, I could see that. It's definitely a bold choice, but I think it really works in this show. It just pushes the boundaries of what horror can be.
It's a great example of how Hill House is different, how it takes risks.
So we've spent this whole deep dive talking about the haunting of Hill House. We've looked at the ghosts, the characters, the themes, the filmmaking. And one thing is clear. This show is not your typical horror story.
It's so much more than that.
It's a deep exploration of family, of trauma, of the things that haunt us, both literally and figuratively.
It makes you confront your own fears, your own past.
And it reminds us that even in the darkest of places, there's always hope. Hope for healing, for connection, for finding our way back to each other.
It's a powerful message, and it's one that stays with you. So as we wrap up this deep dive, think about this. In a world where the line between what's real and what's not can be so blurry, how do you face your own ghosts? How do you find the light in the darkness?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into The Haunting of Hill House.
It's been a pleasure.